Okay, Sheviit Perek Chet Mishnah Gimel, the third Mishnah and the 8th chapter of Sheviit. We turn now to a very interesting and I would say somewhat complicated and controversial topic, which is the topic of merchandising and the sale of Perot Sheviit. Okay, so on the one hand, Chazal did not want people to sell Perot Sheviit, the produce of Sheviit. They wanted it to be interchanged. It was supposed to be everyone's. It was supposed to belong to Hefker. Let's look at the psukim. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, let's look at the psukim. Okay, in the psukim themselves, right? We know what the Torah says. The Torah says, let's go back. Here we are. Okay. Sadcha lo tizrach, hamacha lo tivtzor, vayita shabbat ha'aretz lachem le'ochla, lecha le'abdecha le'matecha. It's supposed to be free. It's supposed to belong to everybody. So on the one hand, Chazal did not want us selling produce. On the other hand, Chazal permitted us to sell produce. Let's just go back a few Mishnayot. Okay, I skip back to Perek Zayin Mishnah Gimel. You recall, Perek Zayin Mishnah Gimel, we learned, okay, you can't go take produce in the field. Or but if you collect it, your son can sell it. That's not called mekach u'memkar. Or if you took for yourself to eat and there's extra, mutar le'mochram. So there was a permissibility to some degree of selling. So Rav Safrai has a very, very interesting and a very, very fascinating essay on this. And he said, Chazal were ambivalent. On the one hand, people needed to sell things in order to survive. Other people needed to buy produce. If you think about it today, it's not reasonable that I can't buy anything, that I have to go to the fields. What if I don't live near the fields? What if I live in the market, in the city? What if I'm not able to collect? You know what I'm saying? There has to be some kind of system that enable people to survive and to function. On the other hand, we wanted to prevent people from turning it into a business. So there's this balancing act. It's a very fascinating and sophisticated balancing act. And I'm going to show you a situation that they created in the time of the Mishnah that's very, very relevant today, that you've heard of, but you didn't know it was from the time of the Mishnah. They tried to deal with this problem. Okay, says the Mishnah, Ein mochrim perot shviit. On the one hand, it says you can't sell perot shviit, lo b'midah, velo b'mishkal, velo b'minyan. You're not allowed to sell perot shviit, lo b'midah, not by measurement, i.e. amount, lo b'mishkal, not by, this is volume, lo b'mishkal, not by weight, velo b'minyan, and not by count. Okay, so, all right, am I not allowed to sell it or am I allowed to sell it? So it's fascinating what the Mishnah says, ein mochrin. You can't sell it this way, but the implication is, as the Kahati says right away, ela be'omer, approximate. Meaning you don't sell exactly. When somebody normally, when you go buy, you say, this is how much it weighs and this is how much I pay. Or, I buy etrogim, I pay per etrog. Some fruits that are so expensive, I pay per. Some I pay per volume. I buy, 2 bushels of, or I buy, in Israel we do it by, 500 grams of. So you're not allowed to sell lo b'midah, v'lo b'mishkal, v'lo b'minyan. So Safrai he actually believes that what it means is what normal way something is sold, you don't sell it that way. Rather, you sell it in a different way. So something that's b'midah, you sell b'mishkal. Something that's b'mishkal, you sell b'midah. That's his interpretation. But most interpret that it's lo b'midah, v'lo b'mishkal, v'lo b'minyan. Okay? So, let's look at the Bartenura for a second. Lo b'midah, v'lo b'mishkal, v'lo b'minyan. Why? That somehow will get you to be selling it for cheaper. Whether that's true or not, I'm not exactly sure. Inami, or if you don't sell it in the normal way, then you will treat them with kedushat shvi'it, and you won't treat them in a cheaper way. And that actually backs up what Safrai said, that it's not, you don't sell it in the normal way, because once you're selling it differently, people realize that it's unusual. So the Mishnah says, just certain examples, velo te'enim b'minyan. Normally, te'enim were sold b'minyan by count, figs. So you can't sell figs b'minyan. V'lo yirak b'mishkal. We buy cucumbers by the pound, so you can't. You have to buy them by volume. Here's a bucket full or what have you. Beit Shammai omrim aflo agudot. Beit Shammai says you also don't sell them in bundles. Beit Hillel omrim. Beit Hillel says no. If you bundle them at home, ogdim otam bashuk. Then if you sell them in the shuk, you can also bundle them in the shuk. Kagon hakrishim. V'neitzach halav. Like leeks, and neitzach halav is asphodel. And if you don't know what asphodel is, look it up on the internet. So, it's interesting. Ogdimotam bashuk. Everybody knew that you had to go to the shuk. Everybody understood that there was some kind of commerce going on. So Chazal, you can just feel it in the Mishnah, that on the one hand they wanted to limit commerce, but encourage it in a sort of limited way. And you very often find that in halacha, that it's not all or nothing, it's not yes or no. It's how do we find the appropriate way in order to let it happen in the proper way. And I got to share with you the Tosefta. Safrai points to the Tosefta in Perek Sheviit. Okay, and he says the following, that this was we're in Perek Sheviit of the Mishnah, and this is Perek Sheviit of the Tosefta. Says the Mishnah, says the Tosefta. Tosefta, for those who don't know, Tosefta is the later version of the Mishnah. It's a different edition. It's the Mishnah. It's the Sifrut Tanait. It's the Tanaic teachings, but they weren't included in the Mishnah. Says the Tosefta. Barishona originally, the representatives of Beitin were standing at the entrances to the cities. If a person bought fruit, many they would take it from him. And they give him enough meals for 3 meals, enough for 3 meals. And they would put it in the otsar, the rest they would put it in the storage of the city. The time came, the time of Teinim, they would hire workers, Jewish workers, and then they would pick the Teinim and make them into dveilot. We've learned about this, cakes. And they would bring them into the otsar shebe'ir in the city. They would put them in the city storage. The time came to pick the grapes that grew on their own. Again, then the representatives of Beitin would hire workers, Jewish workers. And then they would pick the grapes. And then they would squash them in the wine press. Put them in barrels. And again, they would put them in the otsar. I'm saying this for a reason, this word. They put them in the storage, city storage. Again, same thing is true of olives. They would hire workers, then they would pick the grapes, they would press them in the olive press, they would put them in barrels, this is a Tosefta. This is a Tanaic source from centuries and centuries ago, the time of the Mishnah. And then they would divide them up every Shabbat. They had a problem. We have grapes, we have olives, we have figs, we have this produce. We can't let it go to waste. If it's going to be a balagan, it's going to be crazy. If everybody has to go out and pick on their own, how do you make sure everybody has it? How do you make sure there's no waste? So they hired Jewish workers. They said, nobody goes. And they hired Jewish workers, and as a collective, the Jewish workers went and collected, and they would put it in the Otsar Ha'ir, in the city storage, Otsar Sheba'ir, in the city storage, okay? And then they would divide it up in the city according to whoever needed. This today is what's called Otsar Beitin. You might have heard of this term, Otsar Beitin. Otsar Beitin. Some people are very confused when the Shemitah comes around in Israel, so they know that there's Heter Mechir, they don't want to hold, but then there's this thing called Otsar Beitin. Do I hold a bit? Don't I hold a bit? Otsar Beitin, the Chazon Ish recommended. He said this is something from the time of the Tosefta. Remember, when the time of Bavli came along, most of the Gemara Bavli didn't address, there was only a Yerushalmi Sheviit. The Bavli didn't address these issues. So the halachot of Sheviit were literally frozen in time until we came back to Eretz Yisrael now. So the Chazon Ish came along and said they had this idea of Otsar Beitin. Otsar Beitin is a Mahadrin shel Mahadrin solution. For whatever reason, people don't understand it, so that I don't want to buy Otsar Beitin. Of course, the produce is Kedushat Sheviit. And literally what they do is, the Beitin goes to religious farmers who want to be a part of this. They hire workers, and they pay them, and they collect them, and then you have to sell in such a way that you're only recouping the expense of the Beitin. But this is the ideal solution called Otsar Beitin, at least for certain kind of produce that grows on its own. And this is based on the Tosefta Masechet Sheviit. And we see here another example of Chazal trying to find a solution to the problem of Schora and Sheviit, to the problem of what do you do? How do you, on the one hand, supply the people with what they need? How do you allow for there to be commerce? But commerce that isn't mizalzel, that doesn't cheapen the value of Sheviit. I find this personally just a fascinating topic. And as always, halacha is, as opposed to what people think, it's sort of this ritual that's dry and yes and no. It's Chazal searching for solutions to make religious law meaningful and beautiful and proper. We'll stop here. If you have any comments or questions, arspoter@gmail.com. We'll dedicate the learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Have a great day.